Good morning everyone. I am Ankit and you're watching the Indian Express analysis which goes live every day at 4 p.m. on StudyIQ IS English channel. Now today is 7th of April and we are going to discuss important news and articles which have appeared in the Indian Express newspaper. We'll start off today by understanding the process of delimitation which is going to happen in the country. And now this process of delimitation, as it has been long demanded in such states like Manipur, where it did not even happen back in 2001. So these demands have emerged. But the consequences of these demands is that the ethnical fault lines that already exist in the state of Manipur, these are expected to increase. So in general, we'll try to understand how the delimitation process has happened over the years, why it did not happen in Manipur and other states in 2001, and how it is going to happen in this particular instance and how it's going to affect the society of Manipur. So this discussion basically points out to GS paper 2 perspective, that is the Indian polity syllabus. In the second article, we'll be understanding about a landmine treaty, because there are many nations who have tried not to follow this treaty. Is India part of this kind of a treaty? What this treaty entails? All of this we are going to discuss this. Now these kind of treaties which involve more than one nation, these are examples of multilateral treaties, and this becomes important from GS paper 2 perspective, particularly the IR syllabus. And also in the main syllabus, if you read, there is a separate space which highlights important multilateral treaties and how it affects India. So that is why landmine treaty becomes important from our exams perspective. In the third article, we'll be understanding about a flagship scheme in order to promote entrepreneurship, particularly in the marginalized section of the society, that is known as Stand Up India. And why the Stand Up India is a news? Because 9 years have been completed since this scheme was brought by the government. So in that regard, we'll try to understand various important features of the scheme, which kind of people are eligible, what are the benefits that they are going to get. Now this is important from two papers, that is GS paper 2 vulnerable sections and GS paper 3, as it deals particularly with the financing aspect. So therefore it is important from financial inclusion, that is a relevant part of GS paper 3 syllabus. In the fourth article, we'll be understanding about the Agastyamalai Biosphere Reserve, which is located in the states of Kerala and Tamil Nadu. Now important protected area and also the areas of ecological importance, we have seen those are important from exams perspective. So we'll try to understand the important bioreserves in India. I'll give a look, or I will tell you the map also, which will help you to consolidate your revision before attempting the prelims examination. So I've attached a separate map in this discussion also, which tells you about the every biosphere reserves in India. Please save that map and use that map in the last days of your prelims revision before you are going to attempt the prelims examination. Now this is something which is relevant from GS paper 3 perspective, that is the environment syllabus. In the fifth article, we'll be understanding about Tripitakas or Tripitakas, also they are known as like this. And why this Tripitakas has been in news? Because Prime Minister Modi recently visited Thailand, where he attended the BIMSTEC summit, and in his meeting with the Thailand PM, she gave Narendra Modi the Tripitakas. So we'll try to understand the significance of these kind of literature specifically from the Buddhism point of view. Now this is relevant from GS paper 1 perspective, as it deals with topics related to ancient history, and also they are an integral part of our art and culture. In the sixth article, we are going to understand in detail about the facts related to increase in household debt, because you understand in recent times, particularly the unsecured household debt, particularly from the ones we take via credit card, these have increased in recent years. So what are the consequences? How can government actually prevent households from getting into more debt? We'll try to understand this in our today's discussion. This is something which is relevant from GS paper 3 perspective, that is mobilization of resources. Now securing debt from a financial institution in forms of loans, lines of credit, etc., these are a form of debt. Debt also means that you have to return that money in coming future. So this has certain kind of implications on household, on how economy functions. We'll try to understand this in detail. So this is the article that we are going to take up today. Now moving to the session, but before that, please make sure to subscribe to my Telegram channel, that is called as ATS Live. So you can search the words ATS Live on the top right hand corner of your app, Alternatively, you have an option to scan this QR code. It will take you directly to my Telegram channel. Now, as a genuine and a very honest request from my side, you can understand the reach of this video in recent days, it has reduced substantially. So what I'd like you to do is, after this video ends, please go to the comment section and comment over it so that it feeds into the YouTube algorithm and automatically this video is suggested to many lot people. Now you understand, as an organizational perspective, we need this video so that more and more people watch this, because ultimately our aim is what? Our aim is to get you selected in the UPSC exam, and I think this session provides you with enough detail relating to current affair which will eventually help you in both prelims as well as mains examination. So please do me a favor and like this video and also comment it after this video ends in the comment section. Okay, now we'll start off our today's discussion. Good evening, Kaizen, Sarang, Baga, Augustine, Blueberry, Lydia, Jayesh, Niranjan, Yashi, Arya. Good evening, Blueberry. Thank you, sir. Looking handsome today. Nice shirt. Thank you. Today, what do you mean today? Well, yes, we start off our today's discussion with this first article, and as you can see, this appeared on the page 6 of the Indian Express newspaper. Now, this article is particularly in relation with Manipur, and it states that the delimitation exercise, which is expected to happen in Manipur, it is a latest trigger for discord between the society of Manipur. So, how it is going to affect Manipur, we're going to understand in our today's discussion. Now, the context of this article is that a recent hearing by the apex court of our country, that is Supreme Court, it has sought, or it was deciding on why there is a long pending exercise of delimitation in Manipur, also in Arunachal Pradesh and Nagaland. Now, in this hearing, what Supreme Court did, that it granted the state central government 3 months time to furnish its response on what step that the central government has taken to conduct the pending delimitation for both Lok Sabha as well as assembly constituencies in these 3 respective states. Now, in context of Manipur, you understand the society of Manipur right now is divided between different kind of communities. On one hand, there are people belonging to Meitei community who are living in the valley, that is Imphal Valley nearly. And on the other side, there are hill tribes like Kuki, like Naga, who are residing on the hill areas of the state. Now, Meitei leaders as well as organizations who are cutting across the party lines, they've responded to this kind of a restrict by reiterating that both older concerns and newer demands are there, and before fulfillment of these demands, should the central government not conduct exercise of delimitation. So, this is the context of our today's discussion. But before understanding this article, you understand, knowing the concept of delimitation becomes very important. First of all, what is a delimitation exercise? Now, delimitation exercise is something which is called redrawing of boundaries of parliamentary as well as assembly constituencies to ensure equal representation based on population changes. Now, it also involves fixing the number of seats allocated to each state in Lok Sabha, and also how many seats will a state particularly will have in their state assembly. Now, the need for this kind of a process is to ensure that for every population there is an equal representation in both Lok Sabha and in the state assembly. So, this is the part of how you redraw the boundaries of various assembly constituencies as your population increase or reduce, right? Now, the importance of this part is that first of all, it should reflect the population growth trends, and while doing so, it has to ensure that people across the country, they are getting equal representation. For example, this is just an example for if the delimitation commission fixes that for every 20 lakh of population, we will provide 1 seat in the parliament. So, suppose if a existing district had 40 lakh population, that means that district will have 2 seats in the Lok Sabha. But what if the population of that district increases to 60? So, if we don't conduct delimitation exercise, that means that the representation of that city, despite increase in population, will remain at 2 seats. So, by conducting delimitation exercise, we would mean that as population of this district has increased from 40 lakh population to 60 lakh population, this should mean that the representative seats, they should increase from 2 to 3. Understand? So, this is the basic process of delimitation. Also, delimitation prevents political imbalance across the country. Now, there are various parameters or various constitutional provisions which allow for conduction of delimitation exercise periodically. For example, if you look at Article 82 of the Constitution, it states that it requires Parliament to revise the allocation of Lok Sabha seats among states after every census. Similarly, for readjustment of seats in the Legislative Assembly, there is Article 170 that states that the number of seats in the state legislative assembly must also be readjusted similarly to Article 82 based on the data of every census. Now, to undertake this process, the Parliament does not undertake this process. For this, a separate temporary body known as Delimitation Commission is set up as per the provisions of Delimitation Act. So, whenever delimitation process is going to happen, Parliament of India enacts a separate act known as Delimitation Act, and based on this act, a temporary body known as Delimitation Commission is set up, which deals with how to redraw these boundaries for both Lok Sabha as well as Legislative Assembly seats. Now, till date, you understand the Article 82 suggests that you need to revise states in both Lok Sabha as well as Legislative Assembly after every census. So, there are as many delimitation commissions that have been set up as per the number of census exercise? The answer is no, because till date only 4 times has the delimitation commissions have been formed. This was done in 1952. 1963, 1973, so these were 3 successive censuses after which the delimitation commissions were set up. However, after 1973, the next delimitation commission were only set up in 2004. So, what was the reason for this pause in the setting up of delimitation? We'll try to find that one out. Sir, hope all is well. Your sound is low. Maybe it's just tired. Well, I'm trying to save energy. If my sound is low, I'll try to increase my sound, no problem. Now, what are the legal and constitutional basis for delimitation? I told you, right? We would otherwise expect that if the constitution provision says that you have to set up the delimitation commission after every census, but we understand this has not happened, right? So, why has it not happened? The answer is 42nd Amendment Act of 1976. Now, what happened before 42nd Amendment Act was brought? That many states, particularly the southern states of India, they highlighted that the population growth in these states, because of many policy changes and encouraging family planning, etc., the population in southern states have not grown as per the growth rate of other states in the country, that is northern states. So, because of the concerns of southern states, the government in 1976 decided to pause this frequent changes in the number of seats in the different states. So, it froze the number of seats in both Lok Sabha and Assembly until 2001 census to encourage population control. Now, why is population control important and why was states, particularly southern states, were concerned, right? Now, in this regard, let me understand you with a very simple example. Suppose there are only 3 states in India, that is state A, state B and state C. And suppose state A had the population of 5 crore people, state B had population of 3 crore people and state C had population of 2 crore people. Now, suppose if delimitation commission decides that for every 20 lakh people, we will provide 1 seat in the Lok Sabha, right? So, from this logic, state A will have how many seats in Lok Sabha? It will have 25 seats in Lok Sabha. State B will have 15 seats in Lok Sabha and state C will have 10 seats in Lok Sabha. Understand? So, this is the distribution of these 3 states. Hypothetically, if the delimitation commission highlights that for every 20 lakh of seats, we will have to provide 1 seat in the Lok Sabha. Now, suppose if the population constituency of these 3 states changes. Now, the states A has the population of say 6 crore people, state B has the population of say 2.6 crore people and state C has the population of 1.8 crore people. So, from this figure, how the seats will be allocated now as per the delimitation commission? States A will have how many seats? 30 seats. State B will have 13 seats and state C will have 9 seats. So, you can understand because of population growth in state A, its representation increased in Lok Sabha. Similarly, due to population decline in states B and C, their seats in Lok Sabha have reduced from 15 to 13 and from 10 to 9. So, this was the concerns of states B and C. For example, southern states, that they said our overall population has not grown, and in some cases like states of Kerala, their population have declined. So they were of the cause that because of our decline in population, our overall representation in the Lok Sabha will reduce, and this will put us at a disadvantage as compared to northern states. So this was the cause of concern based on which the government decided to pause the number of seats in the previous example. So this happened in 42nd Amendment Act. Now this situation even prevailed in the newest millennium, that is after 2000. So based on this, in 84th Amendment Act, this freeze in number of Lok Sabha and Assembly seats which were frozen back in 1976, it was extended until 2026. But you understand, population levels in India from 1970s to 2002 changed a lot, and also in 2001 a new census happened. So what government said, that the number of seats in both Lok Sabha and legislative assemblies will be frozen. However, you are allowed to redraw the boundaries within a separate state. So suppose UP continued to have 80 seats in Lok Sabha. However, the amount of boundaries that are there inside UP will be allowed to change. Similarly, this will be allowed to change in other states without changing the number of seats in both Lok Sabha and Legislative Assembly. So for this, a new delimitation commission was set up. However, it could not change the number of seats. It could only revise the boundaries inside a particular state. Understand? So this was how the delimitation process has happened over the years. Now let us understand how this process happens. I told you there's a separate temporary body which is formed specifically for this purpose, known as Delimitation Commission, and it is set up by Government of India whenever there is a requirement for delimitation. Now this commission, it consists of a chairperson who must be a retired or a working judge of Supreme Court, Chief Election Commissioner of our country, and state election commissioners of the concerned states. Now this body, it decides how this process should happen, how the seats must be revised overall. Now the powers of this body, it includes that it can redraw constituency boundaries based on latest census data. It can allocate seats fairly among states and constituencies, and while doing so, it consults political parties and other stakeholders before finalizing the boundary. And what you have to remember, that is the decision of changes in the parliamentary seat, allocation of boundaries which is made by Delimitation Commission, it cannot be challenged in the court of law based on Article 329. Understand? Also, this Delimitation Commission's order, these are required to be laid down before Lok Sabha and state legislative assemblies. However, they cannot make any changes to the report of Delimitation Commission. So, is judicial review allowed for this Delimitation Commission? The answer is incorrect. Is amendment allowed in the parliament or legislative assembly? The answer is no. Understand? Any doubt you have till now? Now, let us understand how this process affects Manipur. Now, in 2008, where redrawing of political boundaries within various states happened without changing the number of seats, when such thing were to happen in states like Northeast, it created a lot of controversy. Because, for example, in Manipur, the ruling party then was Congress government, and it raised the issue that the fairness of this exercise of 2001 census was not very fair in estimating the population composition in the society of Manipur. So based on this concerns, the union government by a presidential notification decided not to hold delimitation exercise in few states, which included states like Manipur, Assam, Arunachal Pradesh, Nagaland. These 4 states are in Northeast, and also the erstwhile state of Jammu and Kashmir. Right. So in these states, delimitation exercise in 2008, that was redrawing of political boundaries without changing the number of seats in these states, it did not happen in 2008. Understand? Now, recent example that government paused this delimitation exercise in northeastern states and Jammu and Kashmir based on presidential notification, but this presidential notification was rescinded by the union government back in 2020, opening the door for conduct of such exercise in the states where it had prohibited earlier. So based on this, in Jammu and Kashmir, that is a union territory now, the delimitation was carried out recently in 2002 according to 2011 census as specified in the Reorganization Act of erstwhile state of Jammu and Kashmir. Similarly, delimitation exercise in Assam happened in 2003, but this was different as compared to Jammu and Kashmir because it was based not on 2011 census, but it was based on 2001 census. Similarly, there were concerns that why is in central government holding similar exercises in states like Manipur, Nagaland as well as Arunachal Pradesh, and this matter reached to the apex court of our country, that is Supreme Court. So in this regard, Supreme Court has been conducting a hearing seeking opinions of central government, seeking opinions of state government, seeking opinions of relevant stakeholders, and as the thing stands currently in Manipur, last delimitation exercise which happened in Manipur was in 1976, and this was based on which data? This was based on 1971 census data. Understand? So this is the how the recent examples of delimitation has happened in states where it was prohibited earlier. Now, as the demands of census or conducting the census and delimitation exercises Manipur is emerging, there are also some concerns in the society of Manipur. First is that many people living in Manipur, they fear that delimitation exercise, which will be based on 2001 census right now, because 2021 census has not been published yet or not even conducted yet. So this will cause demographic anxieties in the society of Manipur, which will actually exacerbate the existing social tensions. How it will exaggerate? Let me tell you that. Currently, Manipur has 60 assembly seats. Now, these 60 assembly seats are divided, that is 40 seats they fall in states central region that are dominated by Methi majority population, and this is there in the valley area of nearby to the capital Imphal, and other 20 seats are located in the hill areas which are majorly inhabited by tribes like Nagas and Kukis. So, these are hill districts that are there in Manipur. Now, except for Kangpokpi seat, all the hill constituencies, these are reserved for scheduled tribes, and currently in Manipur constituency or in Manipur Legislative Assembly, 10 seats are having Naga MLAs and rest 10 have Kuki MLAs, right? So technically this divides 40 seats to the Methi people and 20 seats to the tribal people. So this is the current composition of the Assembly of Manipur. Now, suppose if the delimitation exercise were to happen based on 2001 census, it stated, the 2001 census stated that the population of Manipur in general is changing, because the population particularly of hill districts, they are having a very high decadal population growth. So, if the revision of seats were to happen based on 2001 census, it will actually allow the redrawing of political boundaries inside Manipur, which will actually benefit the hill people more because their population grew at a higher rate. Now, in absence of such data, the number of constituencies would be changed, because you understand the number of constituencies has been frozen until 2026. So, in total, there will be 60 seats in Legislative Assembly of Manipur. But this would mean if the delimitation exercise were to happen on the basis of 2001 data, this would mean that it will lead to reduction of 3 assembly seats in the valley region and addition of 3 seats in the hill region. So that is why people who are living in valley region, that are Methi people, they are concerned about this exercise. Now, Methi people in general, they are saying that please conduct the delimitation exercise based on the latest census data of 2021, because according to them, 2001 census it actually favored the people living in hill areas, and according to them, abnormal growth numbers in the hill areas, it was impossible based on the usual factors like birth and death rate, improved healthcare, and it could have only been possible to have such a high population growth in hill tribes because of massive immigration or false data. Now, objections were raised by Methi people, and accordingly, the state government, it revised the datas of 2001 census. So, according to Methi people, you can't conduct the delimitation exercise based on 2001 census reading, because according to them, it actually involved it, or it did not account for illegal immigration, or it might have brought a false reading. So, according to Methi people, the government should conduct a new census based on 2021 census data, not 2001 census data. Also, if you have to conduct 2001 census data and the delimitation exercise based on this data, then the citizens of Manipur, particularly the Methi communities, they are demanding first formulate a national register of citizen, which will allow actually knowing how many illegal immigrants have entered into a state by taking advantage of the porous borders of the Indo-Myanmar, and also before proceeding on any kind of alteration like a delimitation exercise, it is necessary to detect illegal migrants first and implement the NRC with base year of 1951, which will allow the government to deport illegal migrants to the respective country, and then only please conduct the delimitation data. So this is the cause of concern of Methi people in general, that they are saying that if you conduct census exercise or delimitation exercise based on 2001 census data, it will actually put Methi people to disadvantage, because the population growth rate of hill people, that is Naga and Kuki tribes, have been quite high. And according to Methi people, this high population growth has been because of illegal immigration. So according to them, first the need for it is to have a national register for citizens, which will allow government to understand who are native people and who are illegal immigrants, send the illegal immigrants back, and then only conduct the delimitation exercise. Now there are other stakeholders in the polity of Myanmar also, Manipur also. You understand these are tribes belonging to Nagas and Kukis. So for example, Naga tribes who are represented by Nagas People Front, they do not oppose the process of delimitation. According to them, the NRC demand from the Methi community is an excuse to delay the long pending delimitation process, and the 2001 data of census has been readjusted due to concerns raised by the Methi people. So this issue should not have been originally there, and delimitation should have happened as it is. Similarly, for Kuki Zomi representatives, they highlight that delimitation exercises Manipur is resisted by the majority community, that is Methi community, and any form of equitable sharing of power and resources against them, it actually strengthens their own demand for having a separate administration for hill and tribe communities, because they say, as you are not conducting the delimitation exercise, it is going against our representation, and they should be allowed to have a separate administration for hill and tribal communities, particularly under Schedule 6. Understand? Any doubt in this discussion? If you don't have any doubt, let's see if you can solve this particular question. Achal, good evening. Now, which of the following statements regarding delimitation in India is or are correct? Delimitation has been conducted in India after every census to adjust the number of Lok Sabha and Assembly seats based on population changes. The Delimitation Commission is an independent body responsible for drawing of constituency boundaries. The 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act extended the freeze on number of seats in Lok Sabha and state assemblies until 2026. Which of the following three is or are correct? Option B, Sarang, Baga and Lydia says. See, first is incorrect, because we understand it should have been after every census, but it did not happen actually. It happened in 1950s, 60s, 70s and then in 2002. Similarly, second is a straightforward one, correct. Third is incorrect, because 42nd Amendment Act, it froze until 2002, which was extended later by 84th Amendment Act. So it is easy to remember. First was 42, and if you multiply it by 2, you get 84, right? So second, third statement incorrect, first is incorrect, only 2 is right, therefore option B is the right answer. Now moving to the next article. This article appeared in Saturday's paper, but because of many number of articles that we had covered in our that day's discussion, so I am covering it today. Now this article says that why are countries quitting the Key Landmine Treaty and the reasons behind it. Now, this is important from GS paper 2 perspective, as I have already told you, important multilateral treaties and how they affect countries like India. It is important from our exams perspective. Now, let us understand the context of this discussion. Context of this discussion is that recently many countries, including Poland, Finland, Baltic states, which include Estonia, Latvia and Lithuania, they have announced plans to withdraw from the Mine Ban Treaty, sorry. Now, Mine Ban Treaty, officially it is known as Ottawa Treaty of 1997. It is a multilateral treaty aimed at eliminating anti-personnel landmines across the world. Now, it is also known as Mine Ban Treaty in popular terms. Now, this treaty prohibits use, development and production, stockpiling and transfer to other states or groups of mines, and additionally it requires the member states to destruct the existing stockpiles of mines within 4 years, clearance of the mined areas within 10 years, and assistance or providing assistance to mine victims, including rehabilitation and reintegration. So the member states, they are required to do these kind of process, and they are prohibited from furthering the use, development and production and stockpiling and transferring of these mines to other countries, right? Now let us understand which all countries are the members. Now it includes 164 countries. From our perspective, what is important is that countries who are not a member of this mine ban treaty. It includes India, Russia, China, US, Pakistan and Israel. So you understand, between borders of India and Pakistan, there are many regions where both of the countries have mines to protect movement of other troops. Now, the International Committee of Red Cross and the NGOs like International Campaign to Ban Landmines, they have played a key role in advocating for the treaty. So, these are the related organizations. These are not the members because this is a intergovernmental treaty. Also, there is an implementation authority. Also, it is a landmine monitor, which is the main body which tracks implementation of this treaty, and also the gold mine contamination and contamination. Now, similarly, for Chemical Weapons Convention, I told you there is technically no body to deal. Sorry, for Biological Weapons Convention, there is no body to monitor the implementation of this treaty. On the other hand, for Chemical Weapons Convention, there is actually an OPCW, that is Organization for Prohibition of Chemical Weapons. So, similarly to that, there is a landmine monitor, which is a main body which tracks implementation of this treaty. Understand? Now, let's see if you are able to solve this question. This I have curated in a very similar manner to a previous year question based on OPCW, right? Consider the following statements regarding Ottawa Treaty of 1997. It prohibits development, production, stockpiling and transfer of anti-personnel landmines. Quite straightforward one. It mandates destruction of all existing landmines within 10 years of signing this treaty. What did the provision say? It prohibits or clearance of mined areas within 10 years and destruction of existing stockpiles within 4 years, right? So, existing stockpiles you have to discuss within 4 years, right? So, 10 years becomes incorrect. India and United States are among the countries that have joined this treaty. I told you India and United States, these are not the members of this treaty. So, third statement becomes incorrect. Only one is right. Therefore, option A is the right answer. Good evening, Mojesh. Now, moving to the third article, this I have taken from PIB, and as you can see, it states 9 years have happened since the Startup India was introduced. Now, this scheme is particularly a scheme for marginalized section of our society, therefore relevant from GS paper 2 perspective, which deals with weaker section, and also it furthers the financial inclusion in our country, therefore also important from GS paper 3, which is a economy syllabus. Now, the context of this discussion is on 5th of April 2016. This scheme was introduced, that is Stand Up India scheme, and the mission of the scheme was to empower members of scheduled castes, scheduled tribes and women, specifically entrepreneurs in these committee, and it was aimed to break barriers by providing bank loans to help them start their new businesses. And over the last 9 years, this scheme has not just funded businesses, but it has nurtured dreams, created livelihoods and driven inclusive growth all across the India. So this is the context of this scheme. Now, based on every other scheme, we have to highlight important points in this scheme, right? Now, this scheme was launched in April 2016 to promote entrepreneurship at grassroots level, focusing on economic empowerment and job creation. And the objective of the scheme is to promote entrepreneurship among members of scheduled caste, scheduled tribes as well as women. Now, focus area of the scheme is that it supports greenfield enterprises, that is only new businesses in fields of manufacturing, services, trading as well as allied activities in agricultural, right? So these are the focus area of the scheme, and what you have to remember, this only supports newer enterprises, that is greenfield enterprises. You understand the difference between greenfield and brownfield, right? Suppose you don't have a business and are looking to start a business by establishing a new factory. So that is a greenfield enterprise. And suppose you already have a factory and you want to increase its capacity. So that will be called as a brownfield enterprise. Understand the difference? Now, various features of the scheme, what you have to understand, the loans under the scheme is provided between 10 lakh to 1 crore rupees, and the people who are eligible to get loans under the scheme are people belonging to these sections who are above 18 years of age, and loans will only be given for greenfield projects that are first time ventures. And in case of non-individual enterprises, suppose if that enterprise is owned by more than one people, then 51% of ownership must be with these three sections of people. And applicants, it must not be a defaulter of any bank loans or financial institution previously, then only they'll get the loans. Understand important points? Now let's see if you are able to solve this particular question. Yes, Blueberry, you were right. Sarang, एक बार और देख लेना पुराना वाला question. Now answer me about this question. Now, the scheme provides loan for greenfield projects only in manufacturing and services. In case of non-individual enterprise, at least 51% of the shareholdings must be within the members of these, and only individuals above 18 years of age who have never defaulted on bank loans are eligible under the scheme. This is a straightforward one. You know it's correct. Second one is also correct. First was incorrect because it also allows for fields like in trade and agriculture allied services, right? So, therefore, first statement is incorrect, and which of the following is or are correct? 2 and 3. Therefore, option B is the right answer. Yes, Blueberry, Niranjan, Lydia, Baga, you are correct. Sarang, please take a look at the question again. Now, like every day I tell you, right, financial inclusion is something which is a very important topic as far as prelims are concerned, because in the previous year we have seen questions relating to Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan Yojana and other efforts by RBI to promote financial inclusion, which also includes opening up of bank account, making digital payments easier, allowing for insurance in various sectors, be it life insurance, be it health insurance. All of these measures are included in financial inclusion. Now I take up those kind of topics in detail in our foundational batches, which is a foundational batches also known as P2I batches. From prelims to interview, we cover everything. Now also relevant teachings for all the important subjects, that is polity, economy, geography, social issues, international relations, ethics, everything is covered in our P2I batches. Now currently the admissions are ongoing for morning batch, that is in April. And how to enroll for these batches? You have to search StudyIQ, go to our website. Before going to our website, you have to create a separate account here by logging in with your mobile number. Now, once you log in, create an account, click on Explore Courses here. As soon as you click on Explore Courses, there is an option to enroll for different kind of a batches. What you can do is click on this UPSC IS English wala tile, which will take you to batches where we teach exclusively in English language, right? Because we understand there are many students, particularly from South, from Northeast, or from states where Hindi is your not a native language, and it is quite okay. So please enroll for these kind of batches which are available exclusively in English medium. Now, to enroll for this batches, which is a 2026 batch, click on this tile. Now you can see the diamond batch is available at 43,749. What are the benefits of diamond batches? I've already told you. Here teachers provide you with one-to-one counsel. You are eligible to get refund in case you clear prelims examination, and also if you top monthly test, you'll be getting the monthly reward of 11,000 rupees. Now the batch or diamond batches, it is available at 43,749, but you can get it for even less by using the code which is flashing on the bottom half of your screen. Click on buy now and I'll tell you how to apply the code. Click on add promo code here. You have to enter a coupon code, enter ATS Live. As soon as you enter ATS Live, click on apply. Now see, as soon as you click on apply, the discount value is added for 8,749 and the course fees reduces from 43,749 to how much? 34,999, and similar discounts are available for both platinum and gold. But my recommendation for you is to enroll for diamond batches, as it makes you available all the features that there is for a StudyIQ course. Understand? Now let us move to our discussion with this next article, which appeared on the website of the Indian Express, and it states that the Supreme Court has directed the Chief Election Commissioner to survey Agastyamalai landscape to spot encroachments into the forest. Now, sorry, not Chief Election Commissioner, it was Central Empowered Committee. Now, the Supreme Court bench has ordered a Central Empowered Committee to conduct extensive survey on the Agastyamalai landscape to understand the encroachments of this protected area. Now, biosphere reserves are very important as far as your prelims examination is concerned, and I've attached a map here. Please save this map anywhere that you want, and please take a look at this map before you go for your prelims examination. This is very important. Just remember the important biosphere reserves and the related states where they are located. This map is quite an exhaustive map. Now what we are dealing with today is this Agastya Malai biosphere reserve, which is located in Tamil Nadu and Kerala. This is in a very southern part of our country. Understand? Now this Agastya Malai biosphere reserve, it is located in south Western Ghats in the states of Tamil Nadu and Kerala. Now it is named after a very famous sage of India, that is Agastya, and it was designated as the UNESCO Biosphere Reserve back in 2001. Similarly, it is also a biodiversity hotspot, which is a part of Western Ghats Sri Lankan biodiversity hotspot. Now, other important factors is there are n number of protected areas which are located inside this biosphere reserve. Please take a look at the list. These are Kalakad Mundamatrai Tiger Reserve, sorry my pronunciation, Tamil Nadu, Pepara Wildlife Sanctuary in Kerala, Shendiri Wildlife Sanctuary in Kerala, Nayar Wildlife Sanctuary also in Kerala, and in Tamil Nadu there is Srivillaputhur Gizzled Squirrel Wildlife Sanctuary and Meghamalai Thiruvanallai Wildlife Sanctuaries. These are located in Tamil Nadu. Please revise these. These might be asked in one form or the other in the exams, right? Now, let us try to solve this particular question with reference to or with consider the following statements regarding the Agastya Malai Biosphere Reserve. It is a part of Western Ghats Sri Lanka biodiversity hotspot and spans across states of Kerala, Tamil Nadu. This one is straightforward. It was designated as UNESCO World Heritage Site in 2001 due to its cultural and historical significance. Is option B correct? Option A is correct. Why isn't B correct then? B is incorrect because it was a part of UNESCO Biosphere Reserve, not UNESCO World Heritage Site, right? So this is how UPSC might play around the words that during the exam tension you might mark this correct because you have read something similar to it, right? So second statement becomes incorrect. You have to identify correct statement. Therefore, option A is the right answer. Yes, good. Now moving to the next article, I told you right about Prime Minister Modi's tweet. This is the tweet that he has actually posted, that he is grateful to the Prime Minister of Thailand who has gifted him a copy of Tripitakas in a language called Pali. So this is the tweet I was talking about in my post on Telegram. Now the context of this article is that Prime Minister of Thailand has gifted a copy of Tripitakas in Pali language to the Indian Prime Minister during his recent visit to Thailand. Now, Tripitaka is an example of canonical scripture belonging to Theravada sect of Buddhism, which contains teaching of Lord Buddha. And recently, Pali has been declared as a classical language, so this is also important from your exams perspective, right? Now, let us understand few facts related to Tripitakas. Now, Tripitakas, also known as three baskets, they consist of Vinay Pitaka, Sut Pitaka and Adhidham Pitaka. Vinay Pitaka, it contains rules and conducts for monks and nuns in the Buddhism religion. And one of the Vinay Pitakas are Patti Mukha, which is a code of monastic discipline, part of Vinay Pitaka. Similarly, Sut Pitaka, it contains of teachings and sermons of Lord Buddha himself, and it is divided into 5 collections known as Digh Nikay, Majjhunima Nikay, Samyut Nikay, Angutra Nikay and Khuddaka Nikay. Similarly, there is third Pitaka known as Adhidham Pitaka, which contains philosophical and psychological analysis of Buddhist teachings. Understand? So, these are 3 important Pitakas that we had done today. Understand which Pitakas are related to what kind of teachings and analysis. Understand, this might be important. Now let's see if you are able to solve this question. Now solve this question quickly. Niranjan says option C. Anyone else? Lydia C. Bagaspings B. Sarang C. Now Vinay Pitaka, one of 3 sections of Tripitaka, lays down rules and conducts for lay followers of Buddhism. Now this is incorrect. What did I tell you? It lays down conducts and rule for monks and nuns, not the followers, right? So first statement automatically becomes incorrect. Sutta Pitaka, part of 3 Pitaka, contains discourses of Buddha and is divided into 5 Nikayas, that are 5 collections, correct. In Adidam Pitaka, it deals with philosophical and psychological analysis of Buddha's teaching. So this one is also correct. 2 and 3 are right, first one is not. We have to identify correct statements. So option B is right. Yes, Baga, you are correct. Lydia also correct. Niranjan also correct. Sarang Arya, please reread the topic and then try to solve this question. You will be getting it right. Okay. So that is how you revise this topic. No, don't worry if you get it incorrect. What is more important, that you do not get it incorrect in the exam. Okay. Now moving to the last article of the day. There are 2 articles for which I have borrowed for our today's analysis. This is the front page article which states that the defaults on credit card have increased by 28% as compared to last year. What are defaults? Suppose these credit card or any transaction that you make on a credit card is technically a short-term loan which you have to repay in a period of 1 month. So suppose if you are not able to return the loans that you have taken under your credit card transactions, that is called as a default. And also another article in the op-ed section today highlighting that Indian households in general, they have seen increase in their debt levels. That is the amount of borrowings that they have done from financial institutions. Now the context of this article is that household debt has surged dramatically in years after the pandemic. It was 36.6% in June 2021. It rose to 40.2% in December 2023 and 42.9% in June of 2024. To compare this before pandemic levels, it was around 33% in 2015, between 2015 and 19. So this has increased almost by 10%, right? Now, not only there are more households who are taking the debt, but also on an average, households are taking more debt. So both number of households who have taken a debt have increased, and also the amount of debt per household has also increased. So this is a cause of worry in general from Indian economy perspective, and this says that this is a peak of structural defect in the economy. How this is a cause of worry? Do not worry, I will tell you in our today's discussion. Now the background of this article is that in previous decade we saw another kind of financial crisis happening with our financial institutions, that is known as a twins balance sheet problem. What was twin balance sheet problem? That is the balance sheet of banks was bad, and also the health of corporate sector in general was quite bad, because corporate sector had taken a lot of loans, and this loans they had invested in many economic opportunities and not so economic opportunities, and that had not paid them rich dividends. Similarly, the loans that these corporate sectors have taken, it went bad, so naturally their ability to return it to the banks from which they have taken the loan were also affected. So in that regards, the NPAs of banks increased, that are non-performing assets, and also the amount of profits it reduced, and sometimes it led to huge amount of loss. So this highlighted the stress in the financial conditions of our corporate sector and also our banks, particularly the public sector banks. So this actually affected the amount of investment that were done in the economy. How does investment happen in the economy? It happens through the investment by private sector. It happens when private sector borrows money from the financial institution and uses that money to undertake expansion of their businesses, setting up of new businesses, right? Now from our economy perspective, you must have understood to calculate GDP in India, there is actually by expenditure method, there are 4 ways in which you calculate GDP in India, one of which is expenditure method. Now under expenditure method, there are 4 subsections of the GDP calculation. That is private expenditure, which is known as private final consumption expenditure. Capital expenditure, it is assumed by gross final GFCF, that is, this is called as capex. Government expenditure, that is government final consumption expenditure, and also net exports, which is negative in case of India. Now private final consumption expenditure, it contributes to our economy. How much? It contributes to our economy by 60%. Similarly, capital expenditure by both government as well as private sector, which is known as gross fixed capital formation, GFCF, it is having a weightage of 30% in our GDP calculation. Similarly, government expenditures it is calculated or it is having 10% of contribution, whereas this has a negative contribution. So this is roughly the contributions made by different sectors of our economy in calculation of GDP. So you can understand the second highest weightage is having with the gross final capital expenditure or GFCE of the private and capital both. Now whenever the investments by private sector is suffered, you understand this actually reduces in our economy, and this actually happened due to twin balance sheet program or twin balance sheet syndrome. How? Because the private sector, they had their stress finances because of their investment that they made. It did not pay them rich dividends, it did not emerge economically beneficial, and as a result their loans which they had to return to banks, it was also not happening. So that is why we also saw the amount of non-performing assets, they increased in our country's financial institutions. So this affected the overall capital expenditure that used to happen in our economy. So due to this time, India solely relied on private final consumption expenditures to drive its economy further, right? So this is how Indian economy functions. Now household debt in general, in order to spend more household, what they do is they take debt from financial institutions. So in general terms, it has surged dramatically in the years after pandemic, and this credit surge has not just been concentrated in a particular segment, but it has been more widespread in nature, that people have taken loans from different kinds of financial institutions, be it banks, be it NBFCs, be it microfinancial institutions, and people belonging to all category, that is poor, middle class and rich people, all have taken loans, and this has added to the amount of household debt in our country. Now the question is whether this household debt, will it actually hold back our private consumption or will it actually add to our private consumption? Let us try to understand this. Now in general, what you have to understand, borrowing itself is not a bad thing, but how do you utilize that borrowing, that drives your economy. And suppose if you are borrowing to meet your day-to-day purposes or day-to-day consumption needs, then it is not an ideal thing to do. But if you are borrowing and using it for investment, then it is a right thing to do. So how you borrow, borrowing is not bad, but what you are doing with the borrowing money or borrowed money, that actually determines if it is a good investment or it is a bad investment. So suppose if you are borrowing money like buy now pay later to buy food from Zomato or from Swiggy, that is a bad thing. But if you are using that borrowed money to get yourself a house or to get or invest in loans, then it is a good investment, right? So these consumption loans, they are also largely unsecured. That is why it is bad for our economy. So for example, credit card loans, personal loans that the banks and financial institutions gives, there are usually no collateral which is demanded by the financial institution. So in case you are not able to return the loan, banks do not have an option to sell this collateral and get some of their money back. So that is why they remain largely unsecured. And so in case if these private borrowing or these personal loans, if they are not returned back to the bank, it creates a stress on their balance sheet. Similarly, such loans, they are dominated, or even the economically less well-off people, they actually are the ones who are taking these kind of personal loans. So naturally, these economically not so well-off people, they'll be taking loans to meet their consumption requirements. They'll be taking loans to get their children married. They'll be taking loans to get iPhones. So that is why this is primarily driving the consumption. However, it is not leading to capital investment. And this only indicates that post the pandemic, the less well-off, they went on a credit binge to support their consumption requirements, while the more affluent ones, they also borrowed heavily. However, they accumulated assets like house, cars, etc., which in a way is a better driver for economy. So this highlights that when economically not well-off people, they take these unsecured loans in form of personal loans, credit card, they are using it to fulfill their consumption requirement, and they are not using it to fulfill their investment related requirement, which is bad for economy. Also, you have to understand the consequences of this horror borrowing. If you are automatically taking higher money in lending from the banks, it will lead to greater indebtedness of your overall household, which implies that loan repayment will account for a bigger portion of your household disposable income. So suppose your income every month is say 10,000 rupees, and if you have an EMI of 6,000 rupees that you have to return back to the loans, so technically you only have 4,000 rupees every month to meet your day-to-day requirements. So this actually says that greater indebtedness is bad, especially for economically not well-off people, because a larger part part of their income will go in returning a part of their loans. Similarly, unless the income grows rapidly, the burden of repayment will eat on their disposable incomes, which in a longer time will impact the spending capacity of the household. So from this example, you can only say that the households with this example will have only 4,000 rupees to spend. So overall, this will actually reduce the amount of private consumption expenditures by Indian household because of their increase in debt. So we are taking debt in order to increase some of our spending, but in longer terms, our overall spending reduces. Also, it might lead to policy changes by the central bank, because central bank knows these kind of loans are unsecured, and if unchecked, it might lead to banks stressed financial assets in longer times. So it increased the risk weighted on banks' exposure to NBFCs and on consumer credit. Suppose banks, whenever they get loans, they have to keep certain amount of money aside in case that loan goes bad, so that it does not affect their balance sheet. So every loan that banks extend to NBFCs and to these kind of consumer credit, now banks, as per the RBI policy change, will have to keep more money aside so as to prevent their balance sheet from getting bad. And this eventually will slow down the overall credit growth, because banks could have extended more loans, but now it is required to keep more money aside, so less amount of money is available with banks to extend loans. And it might also lead to cautious lending by the banks, which will lead to a very crunch credit or crunch liquidity in the economy. So this is how it actually is a negatively impacting the Indian economy by these many reasons. Now, what the government can do in this regard, there are many suggestions given in this article, which includes this is a structural problem and you have to identify and address this structural problem by creating more jobs and promoting income growth of our household. And how can we do that? There are many measures. First, government or the RBI can tighten interest rates, which is increasing the repo rate in our country, which will also increase the cost of loans, and this will actually reduce the incentive for people to get unsecured loans from the market. However, it is bad for business and it might also lead to slowdown in the growth of our economy. So this is not a usual suggestion. Similarly, banks or RBI can impose stricter lending standards. That means banks will have to give less amount of money to unsecured lending, and also they have to keep more monies aside as a form of provisioning requirements. So this might actually discourage banks to extend unsecured loans, right? Similarly, banks or RBI can also order for stress testing of banks, so that to ascertain the adequate levels of stress on their balance sheet and what if more measures can be needed in form of RBI. Similarly, government can also increase the disposable income of people so that they are required they are less required to borrow money and they can have more money with themselves from their income. So that government can lower the tax burden, which it has already done so in this year's budget by removing the need to pay income taxes up till 12 lakh rupees of your income. Similarly, it can incentivize saving so that people rely less on spending, rather they rely more on savings, and therefore it can incentivize savings in many small saving schemes, which will also encourage more amount of savings, and this saving can actually drive more investment in economy in longer term. Similarly, government needs to have social safety nets, especially for people belonging to lower strata of the society, so that the money that they were using it on healthcare expenditure, on educational expenditure, they might be taking care of the government itself. Understand? So this is all for our today's discussion. The notes for this session will be available on my Telegram channel, that is ATS Live. So please subscribe to it. And this is all from my side for today. I'll see you again tomorrow at 4 p.m. Please have a very good evening and a very pleasant good night.